he is. Excellent. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Hammer-ons, Pull-offs and Slides workshop. And I'm going to start out by sharing my screen with you, if that's all right, Steve. I just want to play you a little bit of a song because I want to illustrate what hammer-ons and pull-offs can do. Now, I'm not saying that anyone here is Jimmy Page, but if you have a listen to the intro to this song, or I'll play it first and then I'll explain just how simple it is what he's doing. Can people hear that?
Dean, up the top of your screen,
Yep.
options, up the options, there should be share sound or something.
You are screen sharing?
Yep.
Is it in there somewhere?
Okay, stop sharing for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, stop the share.
Stop.
Okay, now when you click on share screen at the bottom,
yeah, there's share
and the white
sound
screen
as well.
comes up,
Advanced sharing
bottom
options.
bottom left hand side should be a tick box left hand side, bottom.
Share computer sound. Sorry, Steve, missed that.
Hit that one first and you're away. All good, mate.
Thank you. Okay, let's try that again. Anyway, that's the point. What he was doing there, diddle-doo-doo, diddle-doo-doo-doo. He's playing G and D, for goodness sake, over and over again. But what's so cool about it is he uses hammer-ons and pull-offs to play that little bit in the middle to make it sound lovely. Jimmy Page knows quite a bit about folk, and so he's stolen that from folk musicians. And if you listen to folk acoustic guitarists in particular, they'll be doing hammer-on and pull-off stuff all the time. So, Steve, if we can share, we might go through the intro to the little document. Excellent. So, we're going to start with hammer-ons first. Hammer-on is when you play a note on a string, and then without plucking again, you put your finger down on a higher fret to make a new note. This can be done with more than one string at a time and even with whole chords. So I'm going to show you how to do that in a sec. But why would you do this? Why would you make life hard for yourself? Well, one of the cool things is you can play more notes quickly. So you heard how quick that da, that's quite a quick little riff there, because you don't have to pluck all the notes. The notes ring out without you having to do it. And also they've got a different sound. You can't get that sound by plucking the note. A hammer-on has its own tone, and that adds some variation to your tone. So, Steve-o, if you could unshare for a minute, and we can get back to me, and let's have a look at how we do this. So I'm going to get you to go to your E string, that's your second string, and we're going to go from the open E to the third fret on the E. So open to third. So if everyone can play those two notes for me. And this time I want you to pluck it once and then hit it. And you have to put your finger down quite firmly. The energy you use to put your finger down will make the note ring out louder. So let's try that from open to third plucked. Now open to third without plucking a second time. Is everyone else getting that same effect? Because I can't hear you, so I need some nods and thumbs up and stuff. Yeah, you've just done a hammer-on. Now, I reckon you do these quite often without even noticing. It's quite common for you to actually start playing an open note and then bring in an open chord and then bring in the note afterwards. I read a thing about John Lennon once where it said the most common chord he played was a G6, because that's pretty much the open strings on a guitar. And he always started by playing the open strings before he fretted them. So he's got this particular sound because of that. So it's not a problem to do this. It can be part of what you do, and it often sounds good. So on our uke, of course, it'll be a C6 that we do when we're playing an open thing. But if I reckon if you're listening really hard to yourself, you'd hear yourself playing that C6 all the time before you actually hit the chord. And if you think back to when you were a real beginner, you might remember that you tried to get those fingers down before you strummed. And as you learnt more and more, you realized the fingers could come a bit later. Like they didn't all have to be in place beforehand. As long as you got them there eventually, the chord rang out. So we're going to practice that thing a few times. So let's go E string, 0 to 3, hammer on. Now, if I do that really quickly, I don't expect you to do this, but just hear how quick. That's quite quick. Because my thumb is only hitting it every other note, I'm not having to pluck very fast to make my notes ring out really quickly. And of course, that's one of the reasons we do this, is to get more notes out of our fingers. Yeah. And people who play fast, like bluegrass musicians, if you ever heard a banjo player, banjos are just hammer-ons all the damn time because it makes them sound faster. Okay, so that is going to be used a bit later. We're going to use that as part of our nutbush riff when we go to our pull-offs, because that's part of that thing. So we're going to remember that 0 to 3 on the E string. And I hope you're hearing that a good fret of that will make it sound better. It'll ring out better if you fret it nice and clean and nice and firmly. That's practice, of course. So a bit of that won't go astray. And Steve's recording this. Hang on a sec. Can you hear the blower in the background? Is that annoying? No, we're fine. Okay. Steve's recording this, so you'll be able to practice this along with the video at your own leisure. And all right, so you don't have to just fret one string at a time though. So if I do the A and the E, I can do the same thing. Can you hear that? That's 2 strings ringing out. Now, one of the things we do in the mugs quite often is we use this. Well, some of us do, because remember, variation adds to what we do. It makes it sound a bigger sound. So, and most commonly it's in midnight hours. So you don't need to have your music in front of you for this. If you don't have midnight hour in front of you, because it's just C and F. Now, in the book, it says, or on the chart, it says C then F. C, F, C, F. Now, if you think about when we play it live, if you play with the mugs, when I start the intro, it doesn't quite sound like that. I'm in fact playing a hammer-on the F. That whole chord is hammered on. So I leave my C in place with my ring finger. I leave that in place. I got a mozzie. And I hammer on the F a little bit after I strum it. So watch this. Can you hear that lift up to the F? I strum it, then fret it, and it gives it feel. All of a sudden it's got a bit of swing to it, because it's not happening right on that first beat. It's happening a little bit afterwards, and oh, it's starting to, oh, I'm getting the rhythm. Yeah, you start to feel a bit like that from it. So can we try that? So we're... So I'm not strumming that second time. That's just my left hand making that noise for me. Is that working for people? Is that making that noise for you? Denise, it's working for Denise. It's working for Jen. Adrian, yeah, I thought you were just adjusting your glasses for a sec there, Adrian, but yeah, that works for you. What about you, Bob and Jan? You working for you? Yeah, all right. So they're all the people I can see on the screen, so I'm trusting that means everybody. So let's give that a go together. Remember, we're not strumming it on the F chord. We're strumming it just before to give it that lift up to the F. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And you like that? It's got feel now, doesn't it? It's got a bit of swing. Yeah, you like that, Bob and Jen? Good news, good news, good news. Now, this will impress you, Bob. While I was playing with that, I realised there's a Rolling Stones thing. Keith Richards does that hammer-on to that our F shape all the damn time. It's his only trick, frankly. I don't know how he's got away with it all these years. So if I was playing Beast of Burden, it would go... Can you hear that? It's the same thing, exactly the same thing. Yeah, I'll teach you later, Bobby. I'll teach you that. Yeah? So that uses a hammer-on the F chord, and then there's a hammer-on as well from the C to the D on that third string. It's a lovely thing. Okay, but there's lots of places you can play this. Proud Mary, now you don't need to pull this up in the book. If you've got book one with you and you want to put Proud Mary in front of you, that's cool, but you don't need it because we're just going to play a G chord together. Now, this is one of the most common places you'll see hammer-ons used in a song. As soon as a folk musician plays this shape on a guitar, they'll start doing these tricks and you'll recognize them. So, in Proud Mary, it's just on the G. Left a good job in the city, working for the man every night and day. Yeah, well, great, but you know. So what can we do to jazz that up using hammer-ons? Well, we've got 3 fingers here that can come off and back on again in any pattern we like. So let's try this. Can you see what I'm doing here? Watch my finger. My finger goes on the, I'm playing the G, but I'm taking my first finger off and I'm hammering it on to the 2nd fret. So the other 2 fingers stay in place on the chord and my first finger hammers on 2nd fret, 3rd string. And it sounds... Left a good job in a city, working for the man every night and day. Yeah, that's got a bit more je ne sais quoi. Yes? Yeah, I don't know if that's actually French. I just heard it somewhere. So you can do that. You can do, I do it all the time. No one notices. I'm just mucking around. But as long as you end up on that G chord, nobody cares. You can do it. Oh, I won't do that. You can do it with your big finger. So let's hold the chord, and this time our big finger's going to come off and do the same job, okay? Left a good job in the city, working for the man every night and day. Yeah? Okay. Gets a bit tricky this time. I'm going to take off my ring finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. So it's going to go from a G6 or an E minor 7 up to a G. All right? So it goes... Left a good job in the city, working for the man every night and day. Is that working for people? Yeah, thanks for the thumbs. I appreciate the thumbs. I'm a teacher, if you don't know what my day job is, and what students do while I'm doing this sort of stuff is they sign in, say, hello, Dean, and they turn their camera off, they turn their microphone off, and go back to sleep. So they get marked here on the roll. So I'm very glad for the feedback because I get none in my classes. I'm talking to empty space. Now, don't know if you can do this yet, but this is somewhere to go. Maybe if we go back to the recording and practice this, I can combine those 3 things while I'm playing that chorus, a verse, I should say. So I'll just give it a go, then I'll explain what I'm doing just so you can give it a go later maybe. So I'll go... Yeah, so that was all 3 in order. That was first finger off, 2nd finger off, 3rd finger off, and hammering on. So it went. Yeah? And that gives you enormous variation. So instead of playing one chord there, you played 4 chords. You played pretty much a G sus4, a G sus2, and a G6, and a G, and got that lovely feel from the hammer-on as well, instead of just the G. Now, what a bonus. What a bonus for that one little trick to get all that variation happening in that. And so, yeah, particularly when the instruments are solo, you might want to think about putting some of these tricks in. We can do the same with Way Out West. So, way out west, where the rain don't fall, got a job with a company drilling for... I'm doing the same tricks. It's just a G chord over and over, and I'm doing those same 3 little tricks on that. So, anytime you got a G chord, you got to hang on, and we do that quite often. You might want to try that trick. Iko is the next one. We played that on the weekend, if you were here. Not that many people were. Where were people on the weekend? Man, everyone was away. Where did you go, Bob and Jen? So, we're going to hammer on an entire... Oh, sorry. So we're going to hold a D chord. You need to do your 3-finger D. Does everyone know their 3-finger D? Jen, I know your fingers do very weird things on a D. But what we need is for the 4th string to be able to be open and then hammered back on. So, yeah. So if I do this, I'm taking off my big finger and hammering it on to the 2nd fret of the 4th string as part of my D. So... my grandma and your grandma sitting by... Yeah? Just a little variation once again. It's got that lovely feel you get from the hammer-on, and adds a little variation to the chords. That was a D sus4, or variation of. It's a note missing out of it, but anyway, D sus4 we'll call it. Now, Iko then goes to an A. We can do exactly the same thing. Hold an A, take your ring finger off, your big finger, I should say, off, if you're playing with your first 2 fingers, and hammer it on to the 2nd. It's the same pattern. So do we want to combine that pattern on the D and then the A? So it's... my grandma and your grandma, ready for it? Sitting by the fire. My grandma to your grandma, I'm gonna set your flag on fire. You like that? It's like, yeah, well, yeah. Okay. And we don't, yeah, Jen's, are you doing that? You're doing the Bo Diddley Boo there, aren't you, Jen? Yes, I can tell. Okay, stuck in the middle. Now, this time we're going to hammer on an entire D chord. Okay, so however you play a D, you're playing open, C6, and you got to bring on the entire D chord. Now, this can be a bit hard to make them all ring and to get enough bang onto it to make the strings ring out, but let's try. Well, I don't know why I came here tonight. I got a feeling that something ain't right. Yeah? That, in fact, I think I do that when we play live with the Mugs, just to give it a bit more, that slide up feel it sort of gets, gives it a bit of, I don't know, it makes it, I reckon it fits. It's certainly not what happens on the actual record, but I reckon it fits. Okay, and you can do the same in boots. Okay. We're on the D. You keep saying you got something for me, something you call love, but confess. Yeah? Now, I'm going to get tricky with you here. you don't have to hammer on from an open position. You can hammer on from anywhere. So let's use our first finger to hold down a D shape, but 1 fret down. So can everyone see where my finger is? And this string, I'm just letting the fat of my finger rest on it. Not that there's any fat on your fingers. I know, ladies. The fat of my finger rest on it just to deaden the string. And what I'm going to do now is hammer on from that to that, from 1 to 2 to bring up my D shape. And that gets me a 1-note lift instead of a 2-note lift. So it's... You keep saying you got something for me. Yeah? So we'll show you another trick with boots later on, but that's what I wanted to show you with hammer-ons. There's one more little thing. I talked about getting more notes out of it. If I use lots of hammer-ons, I can get 1 pluck for 5 notes. Yeah? Or 4 notes. Let's try 4 notes. So it doesn't matter which notes I'm... 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see how much pace you can get out of that note. So if you can get your hammer-ons working, you'll be playing like a bluegrass guy in no time. Yeah? Okay. Is everyone cool with hammer-ons? Do we need to pause for questions or anything? Excellent.
That's looking okay. Looking okay,
Steve?
Yep.
Can we bring up the chart again for pull-offs, please, Steve? There we go. Thank you very much. So, pull-off is the same idea in reverse. A little bit harder, I reckon. But a pull-off's when you play a note on a string, and then without plucking the string again, you pull your finger off the string to play a lower note. You can only do this on one string. Pull-offs, you can't do on more than one string at a time. So, once again, we pull off because we can play more notes doing it this way. And there were lots of pull-offs in that little Led Zeppelin riff I played you at the start. And once again, pull-offs have a different sound. It changes up what you do, and we love a bit of variation. So, let's practice a pull-off together. Steve, thank you. We're going to go ring finger, so we hold a C chord, but we're just playing the first string. Can everyone see that? And we're going to go... Now, this is a bit harder. We can't just lift our finger off because the string has a certain amount of energy in it. When we come upwards, the energy is happening over less string. So that means same amount of energy, less string, quite a loud note. Yeah, because the energy is sustained. When I take that energy and make it on more string, there's more string to move around and the sound tends to drop. How do we compensate for that? What we do is we actually brush our finger across the string to sort of pluck it with our fretting finger. So can everyone just practice that? Put your finger on the C, and instead of taking it off nice and cleanly, brush it across to pluck with that finger. Just practice that for a minute. Okay, looking for the thumbs? We all got that down? Okay, cool. So, we're going to go 1, 2, pull off. 1, 2, pull off. 1, 2, pull off. 1, 2, pull off. Pluck, pluck, pull off. Pluck, pluck, pull off. Pluck, pluck, pull off. Pluck, pluck, pull off. What's that Seinfeld episode? Yankee beans, Yankee beans. Can everyone get that? Is 1, 2 pull off working for everybody? Excellent. Okay, we're going to get back to the nutbush riff, because if we combine what we learnt before as a hammer-on with this pull off, we end up with a little riff we can play in nutbush. So let's see how this goes. Nutbush is in A. Yeah. And the riff goes like this. Church house, gin house. Messed that up a bit. Try it again. Church house, gin house. Let's see what I'm doing. It's church house, gin house, and it's pluck, pluck, pull. Now we do our other trick, which is a hammer on the E string. And then you play your open A string. So I'm going to do it real slow. Church house, gin house. Pluck, pluck, pull. Pluck, 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 pull. Hammer, open A. So you're just using these 4 spaces. 3 on the 4th string, 0 on the first, sorry, 3 on the 1st string, 0 on the 1st string, 3 on the 2nd string, 0 on the 2nd string. They're the only notes you play. And it goes once again. So, do you want to try it together? I can play through the whole verse and we'll see if we can get that riff right, yeah? But remember, you're trying to pull off and hammer on. Now, I'll point out something here. That in that thing, that hammer-on gives it a feel. I reckon this is good evidence for why you'd use it. This hammer-on gives it a feel you wouldn't get from a pluck. Okay? So, if I went... That's one thing, but that's got a bit of something to it, yeah? It's got a bit of zhuzh, yeah? So we use that hammer-on to give it a bit of zhuzh. We're going to try this together. I'll do it real slow, even though you know how fast we normally play this. Let's try it. Church house, gin house, schoolhouse, outhouse, highway number 19. People keep the city clean. You like that? Did that work for people? Yeah? Oh, Jen's happy. Adrian's happy. Denise is sitting back looking at me like, do you expect me to do this first time? What are you mad? That's right. That's what the recording's for. I know. I've practiced this for this, so I'm not expecting anyone to do it. Now, once again, we can pick up a lot of speed through doing this. So, did you hear that? That was all pull-offs. Pull-offs and hammer-ons. Yeah? I didn't pluck once. So AC/DC Thunderstruck. Does anyone know that little riff at the start? I'm not going to share it with you. That's all hammer-ons and pull-offs. That entire riff that he plays through that song is hammer-ons and pull-offs. So have a listen to that. And it's got a certain sound. You know he's not playing normally. It's got this funny sound to it that's really cool. So is everyone cool with pull-offs? Yeah? Excellent. Now, I didn't write this down, but you now know a third thing already. Because you know how to hammer on and you know how to pull off, you actually know a trill. So a trill is simply a hammer on with a pull off after it. So you go, so hammer on, pull it off, and you're playing 3 notes for 1 pluck. So you want to try that? I'm on C string, 3rd string, and I'm playing on the 2nd fret. So it's off, hammer, pull, off, hammer, pull, off, hammer, pull, off, hammer, pull. And if once you get good at this, you should hear classical musicians do this. They can just do it for hours. That's just off, hammer, off, hammer on, pull. That's all you're doing. Off, so off, hammer on, pull, off, hammer on, pull. So if you do that over and over and over, you get really, really fast at it. So if you get back to like Bach and stuff like that, there's trills everywhere. They were big on trills. They weren't written in the music. That was just sort of what they added to music to make it sound fancy. Okay, so there's a bonus thing you've learned. Because you know hammer-ons and pull-offs, you now know trills as well. All right? Okay, fourth thing for tonight. How am I going time-wise, Steve? I got enough time for slides? I'm taking that as a yes. Yep, thank you. A slide is when you fret a chord below where it's usually fretted, strum it, and then slide up the chord without strumming again. All right? So you're fretting it below where it's usually fretted, you strum it, and then slide it up. Why do you do that? It sounds different. Sliding up sounds different, and you can't make it that noise in any other way. Okay? So we're going to have a look at Jailhouse Rock. If you've got your book in front of you, you can pull up Jailhouse Rock, but you don't need it because we're only going to play the G. So as long as you know a G chord, you don't need the book. And what we're going to do is we're going to hold a G chord. So fret a G chord for me. And now we're going to slide it down one. Slide it down one. And we're going to strum that, which isn't a proper chord at all. It's a G flat with a G, which doesn't work, and slide it up without taking our fingers off so those notes continue to ring. So let's hear how that sounds. And what you're doing there is you're, because that's dissonant, that G in that note. That's dissonant. What you're doing is removing the dissonance, and everyone goes, ah. Oops, too far. Is everyone right with that slide? Is that working for people? So you know how the song goes. So you start it with that G flat fretted and slide it. Through a party in the county jail. Prison band was there and they began to wail. Band was jumping and the joint began to swing. Should have heard the knocked out jailbird sing, let's rock. Yeah? So, we know that's not the only song that does that, yeah? We don't tend to do this in the most because getting the timing of that when you're working together can be a little bit difficult, but that slide always sounds nice. When you can slide up to something, once again, bit of je ne sais quoi. Okay. Next one we're going to have a look at is Mustang Sally. Now, this is a bit harder. So Mustang Sally is a G7 chord. So can everyone fret a G7 for me? And we're going to slide that down one. But you know what happens to your first finger when you slide a G7 down one. It falls off the fretboard. Okay? So we're actually going to play a C sharp dim. That's what that chord is. It's an E minor 7 slid down one if you like. And we're going to slide it up to a G7 and bring our finger in behind it to finish the G7 chord. Can everyone see what I've done there? I've brought my first finger in behind to make it into a G7.
I think we've just lost Dean.
And see myself and make myself as big as possible. Ah, I lost my screen.
There you go.
There I am. Okay, so what we're doing is playing Mustang Sally. So remember we've got that G7 slid down one. We're going to slide it up. So let's go. Hello, Sue, I can see you now. Here we go. Slide up to the G7. Here we go. Mustang Sally. Guess you better slow the Mustang down. Yep, so you'll recognize that if you've ever played that song. It's got that slide up to the G7. And that's actually written in the charts as well. That one's a little bit harder, I reckon, because you've got to bring that first finger in behind it. And what you probably haven't noticed, and maybe you've done without thinking, is you're actually hammering that note on. The 7th note of the G chord, you're hammering that on into the G7 chord to make that ring out. So yeah, that's a little hammer-on you've done that you probably don't recognize. Okay, I Want to Hold Your Hand is the next one. The intro to that is a little bit harder. Sorry to B-flatophobics, we're about to play a B-flat, because once we're playing a bar chord, we can slide it up and down anywhere. And that's exactly what they do in I Want to Hold Your Hand. Even the original Beatles version has the slide because they're playing bar chords on it. So let's fret a B flat. Yeah. And what they do is so here's what I'm doing. I'm strumming 3 on the B flat, and then I'm sliding up to the C. Can you see that? Now, many people, I reckon, in the past were doing this. And I think you'll agree, it just doesn't do that cool thing that the slide does, yeah? That slide makes it, I reckon. So, slide has its own sound. That's why we do it. It works in some places. And here's one place I reckon it's just about compulsory. So, you ready? 1, 2, 3. Now, even I'm having trouble holding all those notes in that chord, but a bit of practice, and you'll be able to make sure every single one of those notes continues to ring out as you slide it up. And guess what? If you're feeling really fancy, you could slide down as well. Yeah? So, next time you're playing I Want to Hold Your Hand, is that one Adrian's scared of? Does that make him cry? Is that the one? No? Another Beatles song?
It's 8 days a week.
8 days a week, that's
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So, let's go through what we've done tonight. We've done hammer-ons, where you fret a note but only pluck it once and bring it up. We've done pull-offs, that sort of brush away from the string to make it ring out lower. And of course, because we can do both those things, we can do trills. Yeah, and we've also done slides. Okay, so there's 4 little tricks to help you sound fantastic. And I hope Steve can edit this video together to remove all the nonsense out of that end bit there, so that you can practice along with it. And I hope you've enjoyed. Of course, the notes are up there for you to download as well. Okay, so thanks for coming along, everyone. Great crowd tonight. And I look forward to having a bit of a strum with everyone at the end.